Captain Ibrahim Traore, the leader of Burkina Faso, recently escaped a serious assassination attempt, part of a larger coup plot that has thrown the country deeper into political uncertainty. In a decisive and dramatic move, Traoré responded by calling in Russian special forces to protect his leadership and key government figures. The presence of Russian commandos on Burkinabe soil signals a seismic shift in the nation's foreign policy, and it raises the critical question: why would Russia involve itself in such a delicate internal crisis in West Africa? Since taking power in September 2022, Traoré has been under constant pressure from multiple fronts. As a young military officer turned head of state, he inherited a nation grappling with escalating violence, growing discontent within the military, and a general atmosphere of political instability. Insurgent groups, particularly in the Sahel region, have taken advantage of the chaos, operating with near impunity and expanding their reach throughout West Africa. These groups have actively targeted the state, hoping to benefit from its fragility and eventually dismantle it altogether. Internally, Traoré's government has faced persistent challenges from rival factions within the military and political class. These tensions recently came to a head in a failed coup attempt in April 2025, a plot involving both former and current military officers, and, alarmingly, possible ties to foreign interests. The conspiracy aimed not just at removing Traoré from power, but at completely upending the system he had been trying to build. The revelation of such a coordinated attack sent shockwaves through the capital and reinforced the view that Traoré's survival, and that of his government, was hanging by a thread. Faced with this existential threat, Traoré turned to an unlikely ally, Russia. The deployment of Russian special forces, skilled in elite security operations, was a direct response to the escalating threats against him. These commandos were not sent merely as bodyguards. They were tasked with defending top leadership, securing key government institutions, reinforcing critical infrastructure, and offering high-level tactical training to Burkinabe forces. The goal was clear: prevent further attempts on Traoré's life and create a more robust defense mechanism capable of resisting both insurgents and internal betrayal. Russia's involvement marked a dramatic turn in Burkina Faso's international alignment. For decades, the country had leaned on Western allies, particularly France, for military and economic support. French troops had long been stationed in the Sahel as part of a broader counterinsurgency mission. However, over time, public resentment toward France grew, especially as these efforts failed to stop the spread of violence. Many Burkinabe came to view France not as a savior, but as a neocolonial force with its own agenda. This growing disillusionment opened the door for Russia. Unlike Western powers, which often attach political conditions to their aid, Russia offered military support with fewer strings attached. It presented itself as a partner willing to respect African sovereignty and support governments in their pursuit of autonomy from traditional power structures. In that context, Traoré's decision to partner with Russia wasn't just tactical, it was symbolic. It was a bold statement against the West's perceived dominance and a declaration that Burkina Faso would chart its own path. The Russian special forces did more than protect government officials. They began a process of transforming Burkina Faso's military. Through intensive training programs, they imparted critical knowledge in intelligence gathering, surveillance, counterinsurgency tactics, and crisis response. This collaboration not only increased the capacity of Burkinabe troops but also deepened the strategic ties between the two nations. For Moscow, this alliance was about more than just supporting an embattled leader. It was a chance to expand its influence in a strategically important region. The geopolitical implications are enormous. As Western powers, particularly France, continue to retreat from Africa amid rising anti-colonial sentiment, Russia is stepping in to fill the void. With Burkina Faso located in the heart of the Sahel, its cooperation provides Russia with both a foothold in West Africa and access to lucrative natural resources like gold. For Traoré, the alliance is not only about security, it's about resisting the West's legacy of dominance and building a future based on self-determination. Yet, this realignment comes with its own set of risks. While Russian support might offer immediate protection, long-term stability depends on solving deeper problems. Insurgencies continue to ravage parts of the country, displacing more than 1 million people and devastating entire communities. Despite the presence of elite foreign troops, Burkina Faso remains in a precarious position, and it's unclear whether outside help can truly turn the tide. Moreover, Traoré still faces enormous internal challenges. The country is fractured by political rivalries, military divisions, and growing civil unrest fueled by economic hardship. Since taking power, his administration has struggled to unify the nation. While some segments of the population support his anti-Western stance, many remain skeptical of his ability to lead effectively. Historical patterns of military coups in Burkina Faso only heighten these tensions. Power struggles within the army, especially among elite units like the Presidential Guard, threaten to unravel the fragile cohesion Traoré has tried to establish. Economically, Burkina Faso is faltering. Violence has disrupted key sectors like agriculture and mining. The gold industry, one of the country's main sources of revenue, is mired in controversy over corruption and foreign exploitation. Traoré must find a way to harness these resources for the benefit of the people while avoiding the pitfalls of becoming overly dependent on Russian investors. There's a delicate balance to strike between welcoming foreign aid and safeguarding national sovereignty. Russia, for its part, has a track record of expanding its economic footprint in Africa, investing in infrastructure, mining, and energy sectors. If managed wisely, its involvement could bring much-needed development to Burkina Faso. But if mishandled, it could also mirror past experiences of resource extraction that left local populations impoverished. Traoré's embrace of Russia has not gone unnoticed by the international community. Western countries have expressed growing concern over his ties to Moscow, fearing a broader shift in the regional balance of power. With Russia and China increasingly active in African affairs, the old order is being challenged. Burkina Faso's break from France could further isolate it diplomatically, especially as it still depends on international aid to keep essential services running. Traoré will need to navigate these global tensions carefully, ensuring that his country doesn't become collateral in a new Cold War-style competition for African influence. Even with Russian boots on the ground and new alliances forming, the survival of Traoré's government depends on more than military strength. He must win the trust of his people by tackling the root causes of instability: poor governance, lack of opportunity, inequality, and broken infrastructure. Without progress on these fronts, no foreign partnership will be enough to stabilize the nation. Burkina Faso now stands at a critical juncture. Traoré has defied multiple coup attempts, realigned his nation's foreign policy, and taken unprecedented steps to secure his rule. But his road ahead is still perilous. Whether his bold moves will transform Burkina Faso into a resilient, sovereign state or plunge it deeper into dependence and unrest remains to be seen. In the end, the question isn't just whether Traoré can survive, it's whether he can lead a nation long fractured by violence and shaped by foreign influence into a future of stability and self-determination. What lies ahead for Captain Ibrahim Traoré and Burkina Faso is a complex blend of opportunity and peril. Having resisted the most recent coup attempt and brought Russian special forces into the heart of his security apparatus, Traoré has bought himself time, but not certainty. His leadership now represents more than just the will of a young officer who took charge in turbulent times. It symbolizes a broader African desire to break free from long-standing patterns of foreign control and chart an independent course. Still, time is not on his side. The insurgent groups operating across the Sahel are not easily deterred. They are well organized, deeply embedded in rural areas, and often exploit local grievances that the government has failed to address. Their attacks on civilian populations, infrastructure, and security forces continue to destabilize vast regions of the country. Russian protection can shield the president and his inner circle, but it cannot substitute for long-term governance reforms and inclusive national healing. The solution to insurgency will not come solely through bullets and barricades. It must come through schools, jobs, justice, and local empowerment. One of the more daunting challenges facing Traoré is restoring confidence in the institutions of state. Many Burkinabe have grown weary of governments that promise reform but deliver little, especially after years of economic stagnation and political upheaval. The cost of living continues to rise, access to basic services is patchy, and infrastructure in many rural regions is collapsing. To reverse this trend, Traoré must demonstrate that his administration can not only survive politically, but deliver tangibly. Without improving daily life for citizens, any military or diplomatic victory will be hollow and unsustainable. There is also the task of managing expectations, both domestic and international. At home, Traoré must prove to a skeptical public and a fractured military that he is not merely a temporary occupant of power, but a legitimate leader capable of steering the nation through crisis. Within the ranks of the armed forces, loyalty is not guaranteed. History has shown that Burkina Faso's military is prone to infighting and swift changes in allegiance. Rebuilding trust across these institutions while preventing further factionalism is essential to his regime's endurance. Internationally, Traoré must continue balancing his pivot toward Russia with the risk of alienating Western donors, whose economic assistance and humanitarian support still play a significant role in keeping the country afloat. The global community is watching closely. Western nations may perceive Traoré's embrace of Moscow as a rejection of democratic norms or an alignment with authoritarian power structures. This could affect diplomatic ties, foreign investments, and access to global development programs. However, Traoré's approach is rooted in pragmatism as much as ideology. From his perspective, and increasingly from the viewpoint of other African leaders, the traditional Western model of assistance has failed to meet the urgent needs of countries grappling with insurgency, poverty, and post-colonial legacies. The appeal of Russia lies not only in its willingness to provide security aid without demanding political concessions, but in the symbolic break it offers from former colonial masters and the institutions they continue to dominate. Yet even as Traoré attempts to build a new order, the old threats persist. Coups, assassinations, and insurgencies are not relics of the past. They are active dangers. And while Russian boots on the ground may deter immediate threats, they also make Burkina Faso a more prominent player in a regional and global contest that is heating up. The Sahel is no longer just a theater of African conflict. It is becoming a chessboard in the rivalry between global powers. Traoré's Burkina Faso may very well be the first of many pieces to move, but its position is far from secure. The coming months will test not only his resolve but his vision. If he can strengthen institutions, calm internal divisions, and deliver real progress for his people, Traoré could emerge not just as a survivor, but as a transformative figure in West African politics. If he fails, his presidency could become yet another short chapter in a long history of instability. What is at stake is not only the future of his leadership but the direction of a country, and potentially an entire region, seeking to redefine its place in a rapidly changing world. Success for Traoré hinges on more than just resilience. It demands strategic foresight and the ability to navigate a minefield of competing interests. While his security partnership with Russia may provide a short-term bulwark against immediate threats, it also exposes him to new dependencies that could compromise Burkina Faso's long-term autonomy if not carefully managed. Russia, after all, does not invest in foreign crises out of pure altruism. Its growing footprint across Africa, from Libya to the Central African Republic, reveals a pattern. Military support in exchange for access to resources, political leverage, and strategic positioning. Traoré must tread carefully to ensure Burkina Faso doesn't trade one form of foreign dominance for another. At the same time, regional dynamics are shifting. Across West Africa, governments are watching closely. Countries like Mali and Niger have already shown signs of breaking away from traditional Western alliances, echoing the frustrations that led Traoré to invite Russian forces into his country. Should his strategy prove effective, even marginally, it may embolden other leaders to follow suit, accelerating a broader geopolitical reorientation of the Sahel. This could trigger a cascade of diplomatic realignments that would challenge the status quo of international relations in Africa, forcing Western nations to either rethink their engagement models or risk losing influence entirely. But imitation is risky. What works, or appears to work, for Burkina Faso might not translate across borders. Each country has its own internal dynamics, ethnic complexities, and political histories. And while Russia may present itself as a cooperative alternative to the West, its long-term goals in Africa remain unclear and largely untested in environments this volatile. The danger lies in assuming that replacing one patron with another automatically ensures sovereignty. Traoré must therefore not only defend his country militarily but redefine what self-reliance means in a world where great powers are always circling. Domestically, the burden of proof still rests with him. The people of Burkina Faso, weary from years of instability and broken promises, are looking for more than foreign alliances or military crackdowns. They are looking for a government that listens, responds, and builds. Traoré's legitimacy will ultimately depend on whether he can restore faith in public institutions, create economic opportunities, and build inclusive systems that don't just serve the elite or the military, but reach the average citizen in both urban centers and rural villages. The fight against insurgency cannot be won by arms alone. It must be accompanied by social investment, justice reforms, and reconciliation efforts that address the deep-seated grievances fueling extremism. Disenfranchised communities, especially those in neglected northern regions, need more than protection. They need roads, schools, clinics, and a reason to believe that their future lies with the state rather than against it. Without these foundational changes, no amount of foreign military aid will bring lasting peace. For now, Traoré has achieved what many believed was impossible. He survived an assassination plot, outmaneuvered powerful enemies, and secured the backing of a major global power. But the true measure of his leadership has yet to be written. Will he evolve from a military ruler into a statesman who can reconcile a divided nation and lead it toward stability and prosperity? Or will he be remembered as another figure who rose in crisis, only to fall in its wake? The choices he makes in the coming months, how he governs, who he empowers, and what vision he offers for Burkina Faso's future, will answer that question. The world is watching, but more importantly, so are his people. And for them, the stakes couldn't be higher. As Traoré moves forward, he stands at a pivotal moment not just in his own career, but in Burkina Faso's post-independence history. This is not simply a matter of surviving the next coup or holding off the next wave of attacks. It's about shaping a nation long caught between competing global interests and internal fractures into a cohesive and independent state. The pressure is immense, and the margin for error is vanishingly thin. His next steps must be calculated with a statesman's precision. First, he must consolidate internal unity, not through fear or coercion, but through dialogue, reform, and inclusion. The factions within the military, the skeptical political opposition, and alienated civil society groups all need a stake in the future of Burkina Faso. If Traoré chooses repression over reconciliation, he risks fueling the very unrest he seeks to prevent. Yet, if he opens genuine channels for participation and builds institutions that function beyond his own rule, he could lay the groundwork for a more durable and democratic state, even within a militarized context. Second, economic reform must go hand in hand with political stability. The country's mineral wealth, particularly its gold, offers immense potential, but only if it's harnessed transparently and reinvested in national development. Traoré has a unique opportunity to break the pattern of resource extraction benefiting only foreign interests or local elites. Partnering with Russia or any other global player must not come at the cost of sovereignty over those resources. Establishing frameworks for fair contracts, anti-corruption oversight, and community reinvestment could turn gold from a source of contention into a foundation for growth. But for all his ambitions, Traoré must remember that the perception of his leadership matters as much as the reality. If he is seen as a proxy for Russian interests, he will alienate a segment of the population already wary of foreign entanglements, even new ones. If his government fails to deliver progress beyond the capital, the rural majority may continue to see insurgent groups not just as threats, but as alternatives. Managing these optics will require more than speeches and symbols. It will require action that touches people's daily lives. Regionally, his leadership is being watched by both allies and adversaries. Leaders across West Africa are navigating the same storms of insurgency, economic crisis, and waning Western support. Traoré's success or failure could influence whether others follow his path or turn away from it. If Burkina Faso manages to stabilize under his leadership, particularly with non-Western backing, it may redefine how African countries negotiate power in a multipolar world. But if the country slides further into chaos, it may become a cautionary tale instead, a warning that rapid realignments, if not grounded in deep structural reform, can do more harm than good. In this high-stakes environment, Traoré cannot afford to rely solely on military strength or symbolic gestures. His leadership must mature quickly into one that prioritizes state-building, inclusive governance, and regional cooperation. He must learn to wield power not just to survive, but to transform. That transformation must be grounded in the lived experiences of his people. Rural farmers displaced by violence, urban youth disillusioned by joblessness, and soldiers fatigued by endless conflict. Ultimately, the story of Ibrahim Traoré is not yet finished. It is still unfolding, shaped daily by decisions he makes and challenges he faces. Whether history will remember him as a transitional figure who rose and fell like so many before him, or as a leader who redefined Burkina Faso's future during its darkest hour, depends on what he does next. The country stands on the edge of either resurgence or further collapse. His every move could tip the balance. In the corridors of power, among the dust-choked towns of the Sahel, and in the tense whispers of soldiers unsure whom to trust, the question lingers: can Traoré not just hold on to power, but use it wisely? The answer will determine not just his fate, but the fate of a nation looking for direction in an increasingly uncertain world. In the end, the story of Captain Ibrahim Traoré is more than a tale of power, politics, and foreign alliances. It's the story of a nation standing at the edge of a new era. Burkina Faso, a country that has long endured the weight of history, conflict, and foreign manipulation, is fighting for something deeper than survival. It is fighting for dignity, for sovereignty, for the right to choose its own path without being dictated to, whether by colonizers of the past or global powers of the present. Traoré's struggle is not perfect. It is messy, complicated, and full of risk. But in it lies the spirit of resistance that has always defined the African continent, the will to rise even when the world expects you to fall. Whether you agree with his choices or not, his courage to stand, to fight, and to reject the status quo is something that resonates far beyond the borders of Burkina Faso. This is not just his fight. It is the fight of every African youth who dreams of a future shaped by their own hands. It is the fight of every community that refuses to be forgotten. It is the fight of a people reclaiming their narrative. If this story moved you, if it stirred something in you, if it reminded you of the importance of unity, sovereignty, and the struggle for a future on our own terms, then don't just watch. Be part of the movement. Like this video if you believe in Africa's right to define its own destiny. Share it with someone who needs to hear this story. Subscribe to the channel to stand with us as we uncover the untold stories of Black history, culture, and power that the world too often ignores. Your support isn't just for clicks. It's a statement, a declaration, that you see us, that you hear us, that you're with us. Together, let's awaken a generation. One story at a time. Thank you for watching. Stay humble, stay strong, and until next time, stay tuned.